Wow. I'm going to try. I'll try my best. I may choke up a little bit, but I'll get through it. But before I begin, on behalf of my whole family, I want to thank everyone for being here. My sister and I were kind of talking, and we expected, maybe 10 or 15 people, and we've got almost a room full. We're generally appreciate everybody being here. My name is Glenn. I'm going to be speaking for the family today. I was Al's youngest son, my dad. My other brothers aren't here, and one of the reasons is my family, we're a very close family, but my father and my mom had purchased airline tickets for all of their grandchildren and all of their children to be there next month. Everybody's coming in, and we're going to do kind of a family memorial at that time. So that's why not everybody is here, but I will be speaking on behalf of the whole family. What I'm here today is to tell you my story with my dad. Your experiences with him are unique. They're not the same as mine, but I'll be speaking for me today. I have notes. I'm going to try to keep to it, but I talk in tangents too. But for some of you, he was your uncle, and he had the ice cream store, and some of you worked for him, and loved Uncle Al. It was like your own family, your own father. Our family, especially the Gerber family who was here, very, very close. For some, he was your brother-in-law, my Uncle Abe, who was best friends with my dad for the longest time. And I have a little funny story about my Uncle Abe with my dad. They were very competitive, and they enjoyed each other's company immensely. And back in Hop Pod, back in New York, we had a finished basement with a pool table, and it was going through renovation. It was being built. And I remember my dad and uncle, my uncle always annoyed my dad just a little bit, and he tolerated it as much as possible. And I know my dad missed a shot to win the game, and my uncle gave it to him. My dad got so mad and went boom on the bar, and then looked down, and there was a nail sticking through his hand like that. And my Uncle Abe looked at him in shock and said, "Oh my gosh, hey, Al, you got a nail through your hand. You're not even complaining." And my dad looked at him and said, "You lose a leg in Korea, this is nothing." It was one of the stories of my uncle. He was also, for a lot of you here, he was your friend. I don't know all of his friends here, but I thank you from the bottom of my heart, from my whole family, that you guys are here. For some, Philip, he was your grandfather. Boy, he loved you. Boy, I remember when he was young and swimming in the pool. And, your grandpa was everything, and he loved you so much. He was your soulmate, Mom. He loved you. Boy, 62 years of marriage. He adored my mother. He was always very affectionate. It's probably where I get some of my stuff. I love to hug and give people, because that's how my dad wasn't necessarily that with me, but with my mom, not the boys, but with my mom he was. Linda, he was your dad. He was all of our dads, but Linda was very special to my dad. She was his little girl. Always was. And he made no qualms about it. On Valentine's Day, she always got that big heart of chocolate. I didn't. But, and I think Linda probably knows this, I always snuck and stole some of hers. She usually shared. Usually. And he was very generous with my sister too, and her friends. My sister had 6 different friends through her teenage years and early 20s that came and lived with our family. My parents, my mom, and my dad, they took them in. These girls that really needed help, that couldn't be with their parents and were going to be out on the street or on their own. And that's the big heart that my dad had, as well as my mom. For some of you, he's the dad of your friend. And for those who came and drove through the night, you have no idea how much I appreciate that. You guys are the best. But for me, For me, he was first and foremost, he was my dad. He's the one who taught me hard work pays off. He worked in Grumman Aircraft on the lunar module back in the 60s, that when the men landed on the moon, one of the base module things, that was what he worked on. He knew part of his work is on the moon. Then he went and he became my boss. We owned a Carvel ice cream store. I started working there literally when I was 8 years old, back in the back, folding boxes and cutting banana splits. Then I couldn't work in the front until I was big enough to do so. And finally I had one of those little milk carts, and I stood on top and said, look, Dad, I could reach the machine, and then I could start working there. And I worked with my dad and my mom every weekend for 5 years. I missed one weekend in 5 years. That's how close we were. My dad was also my business partner. We started a business, GDC, Grandis Distribution Corp, with $100 out of the garage. And I was back when I was working in college. I used to go around and sell floppy disks, and we built it to a multi-million-dollar business, he and I together. We even bought a building, $1 million building together in Huntington Beach when I was in my 20s, and we were together. We were together all the time. Because he was he was my best friend. When I was young, after the Carvel store, we would go home. I don't take lots of time, I hope I'm okay. I'll go faster. And we would always watch Ranger games together, hockey. Hockey was our thing. And I remember one time after working, my mom, my dad, and I, every Sunday night after eating, we'd crawl in bed together and we would watch the hockey game. And my mom was in the middle, and she'd always try to annoy me. She didn't like the hockey game so much. She would annoy me and try to get me to make noise so that I would annoy my dad. And that was her goal. And one time we're laying there, and my mom, she takes her hand and she puts it like right up into my face, like right next to it to annoy me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get even with my mom. So I grab her hand and I bite it. She makes no noise, but my dad goes, what the heck is going on? It was his hand. And my mom just laughed and laughed and laughed, because that's the relationship that we had. So my dad, when I started out my family, we lived next door to everybody knows everyone loves Raymond, where he lived across the street. No, we lived next door, our family, for almost 7 years. And we were inseparable. We had the business together, we were spending every day together. At night, we had dinners together, we were very close. We also had season tickets to hockey. He taught me all about hockey. And I hate to admit it now, but back then we had season tickets to the Kings. That was before the Ducks were around. He was still a King fan. But this is the strength of my father. We went to a hockey game one time, and my dad, since he was 13 years old, smoked Marlboro cigarettes with no filter for, I don't know, since he's 13, so I have 40 years, whatever it was. And he looked at me, and back then you could smoke in the Forum, and the smoke was at the top, and he looked at me and he goes, you know what, I don't want to smoke anymore. I'm like, what? And my Uncle Abe was there, and he had my Uncle Abe, who smoked at the time and was quit since, and he quit cold turkey, just like that. That was his strength. He's like, okay, I'm done. He never had another cigarette. He didn't plan on doing it, he just did it. We played golf together. We were both horrible. He always beat me, though. He always beat me. I'm a terrible golfer, too. But he always beat me by like 1 or 2 strokes. No, he didn't beat me by 10 strokes, but he always beat me by 1 and 2 until he was in his mid-60s. And he got 2 holes in 1 when he was in his 60s and 70s. So, but one time, one of the last times I played with him, I actually won. And I was all excited and stuff, and he looks at me in his humorous ways, and he goes, yeah, Glenn, you should be really proud. You beat a 65-year-old one. That's how my dad was. So, for a lot of you, and I'll be wrapping up. So a lot of you, you see the flag draped coffin, and you see he was a Marine. He was so proud to be a Marine, but to our family, we never even really thought about him being a Marine and a war hero. He was our dad. That's how he was. One time, Linda and I were at the Bronx Zoo when we were kids. And while we were there, we saw somebody, and they had 1 leg. And they were walking by. And Linda and I looked at each other and were like, oh my God, we felt so bad. we never thought of my dad as having one leg. He never let it slow him down. That was just not the way he thought. So think about this. He played softball. He played golf. He was on a bowling team. He was the vice president of the Fountain Valley Kiwanis Club. Not many people know that. He owned an ice cream store. He was a businessman and he was a volunteer. I think I followed in my father's footsteps. I never really thought about that. I'm so thrilled about that because I do every one of those things. So he had such an effect on me that I never even realized. So last thing, last night we were playing bingo. And Linda and my mom and my dad play bingo every Wednesday night. And they sat in the same seats and they had the wine, they had their routine and stuff. And we were playing last night and we had an empty seat for my dad, but there was a glass of wine there. And we were thinking, we kept thinking, Dad, show us a sign, something. And we're going through and bingo's almost over. And we got close here and there. But the last game, the last card, the last number, Linda won bingo. And our whole table was screaming and whooping and hollering. Linda didn't say a word. She was still in shock. But we all felt like my dad was there with us. We really did. And everybody else in the place thought we were kind of getting excited over a little bingo. So, that's my dad. I loved him so much. He was so good to me, to my family, to all of us, in his own way. He wasn't over the top. He was just my dad, and he was a great man.